Hello, DIGI-705 class. It has been so much fun to spend this term with you all and learn about your incredible topics. I'm really excited to see how these topics grow and develop throughout our doctoral journeys. My research proposal is transformative testimonies and the impact storytelling and strategic communication has on personal faith journeys and evangelism. Whew, that is a mouthful. So to break it down, it's looking at specifically strategic communication and theology. And to break it down even more, it's looking at storytelling and faith. So what I really want to find out is, how does sharing a story affect the audience? One Gallup poll shared that only 20% of Americans believe the Bible is the Word of God. Another study showed that belief in God has dropped to an all-time low in young Americans. How are we supposed to evangelize when only 20% of Americans believe that the Bible's the Word of God? I think the answer is storytelling. There have been countless studies that look at the research on storytelling and persuasion, and there's ample research available about evangelism, but I haven't seen much research that looks at the intersection of the two of those. So I am looking at everything through Walter Fisher's narrative paradigm. Walter Fisher theorized that human communication is fundamentally based on storytelling. People use persuasive narratives to make decisions and convey meaning. It suggests that people evaluate the credibility of messages not only through logic and evidence, but also through the coherence and fidelity of stories. Coherence is internal consistency. So think about detectives looking for a coherent story. They're looking to see that everything makes sense and is logical. Fidelity, on the other hand, looks at the truthfulness and the believability of the story. So, for instance, if a speaker shares a personal experience that really resonates with the audience, it has great fidelity. So, the greater the fidelity, the more persuasive that story is. I have developed two research questions. What narrative components play a significant role in making online personal testimonies effective tools for conveying evangelical messages? And how is the narrator's walk of faith impacted after seeing the effects of sharing their testimony? I'm going to break this down in two different qualitative studies. The first will look at 500 individuals who are going to watch a video that shares a transformative testimony of God moving miraculously in someone's life. I'll then have them take a multiple choice questionnaire or a survey that asks, after watching this video, how is your faith affected? A, it did not affect my belief in God. B, it somewhat affected my belief in God. C, it greatly impacted. Something that is very specific like that. I also want to add open-ended space that gives them room to share their feelings and reactions to that video, so I can see if there's any qualitative patterns or themes or any outliers in the survey. My second qualitative study is going to look at Group B. So this is going to have 50 individuals that are willing to share their personal testimonies. I will have them share a 60-second personal story and share it on their social media platform about God moving in their life. I'll then conduct surveys 1 week later to see how seeing that impact of sharing their story affected their personal relationship and their personal faith journey as well. My literature review for this proposal has looked at different studies, so many different studies, but a few that are most interesting that I found were Orr, who shared that first-person narratives heighten a reader's experience. Those are more persuasive, so it's important for all of these stories to be in first person. I also looked at Schrader, who looked at the musical Hamilton, and they found that the audience connected with different characters, and the values of those characters were then absorbed by the audience members. So it's important for the narrator to connect with the audience, and that's where these stories have such a big role. Think of the Bible story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The reason that story is so persuasive is because the coherence actually doesn't make sense. There were 4 people in the fire, not 3. That God factor just changes things. So the fidelity in that message, you know that there is something more to the story, and that heightens the persuasive ability of that story. I want to strengthen my methodology because that is one great constructive criticism that I have had throughout this journey, is that I really need to strengthen my methodology if I want to take this all the way to the dissertation phase, which I do. So if you have any ideas or any research that would be beneficial pertaining to a study that draws clear results from a subjective study, please send it my way. I would love to hear about that. Last night, I did have the opportunity to test my theory with a group of a few hundred women. So our lead pastor's wife had asked me to speak at our Christmas party of a time where God was with me. And I shared my personal story of when our son's heart stopped beating in utero, and how multiple times throughout that journey, there was just irrefutable evidence that God was there, that he just comforted us, all different things. And as I shared my story, there were women that were crying. It was really neat to see the impact that it had on the audience. There were women that came up to me afterwards that said how much that story had impacted them, and how if God was there for me, God could be there for them in what they were facing. And I just think it's so interesting to know how stories resonate. Revelation 12:11 says, "And they have defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." I want to conduct a meaningful study that provides irrefutable evidence that sharing your testimony is not only impactful for the audience, but it also benefits the narrator's faith journey as well. So please give me some constructive criticism. I can't wait to hear what all feedback you have.